Some of you might know the situation. You find out there's an awesome trinket and it's like the best trinket that does giga damage. So you're like, yeah, I want it. Where does it drop off of? That guy.
What?
So you farm that guy week after week after week. The trinket doesn't drop, but you keep at it until finally the tier is over. And it turns out you never got that awesome trinket with the giga damage. So what do? Take a deep breath, you tell yourself, oh well, better luck next time, and you move on. No, you probably get mad because, dude, come on, it's been week after week, one disappointment after another. You know what would be cool? If we can kind of stop that from happening. Hey, it's Soul, and I've got a suggestion to give a path for folks who want some of the hottest pieces of gear to just get it, respecting the player's time in the confines of what's only a several month-long season, but without compromising the excitement of getting a good drop. I've gotten to a lot of different discussions with the live stream throughout this week, and I want to share what we've come up with. So if you don't mind, like the video if you're into this sort of thing, subscribe for more coverage, and catch me live if you enjoy these sorts of chats, but live. Those of you who are familiar with the Shadowlands expansion might remember its fourth and final season, where players got an opportunity to buy a selection of the expansion's popular weapons and trinkets very early on with a limited currency, and then upgrade these pieces over time by farming raid bosses. I want to suggest something kind of sort of similar, and I had a few goals in mind. This is a feature that's designed for everyone. It's not to favor raiders or the Mythic Plus people, and you're going to learn how that works soon. I wanted to give a supplementary path to gearing, not a replacement or an alternate way of gearing that has you doing things that you don't care to do. It's going to be evergreen. It's built into the season structure. Its intent is communicated clearly in a way that players will expect it without having to plan for it, as if they can game the system or race to get an item sooner than anyone else, especially because this is a backup system. Going through the motions of gear drops from raids and dungeons is still supposed to be the primary way to gear. So unlike the Revival Catalyst, and I've really got to emphasize this, it's not going to be used as like the efficient gearing method or progression path. It's like not supposed to be the first thing on your mind. Now, some are going to suggest that it should anyway, but here's my, I guess, preliminary counter-argument. Unlike class sets, I would argue that trinkets and weapon effects, they don't quite share that iconic or transformative quality that changes the way that you play your class during the season. I also want this vendor to be a bit more flexible, so while it's not going to offer items outside of its current season, I do want to include the loot tables from not just the raid, but also the selected dungeons of that season. Okay, Soul, so how does this newfangled free gear welfare system for casuals work? How else are you going to trample on the efforts of top players? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's start trampling. Like I said, we're going to have a vendor that will sell the current season's trinkets and weapons with special effects. Now, this vendor isn't going to be available at the launch of the season, but starting at the guesstimated 0.5 patch. Now, this is going to imply a couple of things. If we consider the Dragonflight systems as they are right now, and a schedule of about 8 to 10 weeks per patch, this vendor is going to play no part in the race to World First. It's obviously going to be over by then. It's going to come well after 4 Revival Catalyst charges are available, and 4 Epic Crafting Sparks will be available, and Raid Finder difficulty will have fully opened by this time. All eligible characters will at least have seen the raid bosses and dungeons for this season within this time frame. So there's a lot of accessibility that's already being laid out. There's a lot of gear that will have dropped. Maybe the items that players have been hunting for, maybe they got them already. Folks who are actively playing during this period are already getting a lot of chances to obtain the gear that they want, giving RNG its appropriate place as a fun surprise. For those of you watching this video while it's fresh, we're still in the 4th week of the season with maybe 4 more weeks to go until this vendor would become available. So what exactly happens when the 0.5 patch drops? The vendor becomes available, and players can start working towards buying their desired weapon or trinket. In fact, the vendor who sells them is the Great Vault vendor. More items are just being added to their shop. The currency used for this may look familiar to you. It's the Token of Merit. Now, normally tokens are found whenever you open the Great Vault and you decide to not take any of the available rewards. You can earn up to 6 per week by completing an entire row, but you get no more than that, so don't bother filling every row, and there's a hold limit of 12. You eventually have to spend them to get more. The 0.5 patch is going to introduce a new kind of token specific for buying weapons and trinkets, meaning that for the rest of the season, if you decline a reward from the Great Vault and get the tokens, you can get up to 6 of the normal tokens and 6 of these new tokens. I don't think it'd be very fair to make people have to choose between spending their tokens on a gem socket item versus their most desired trinket, so let's just have the opportunity to get both. I know folks are pretty averse to having new currencies be introduced, but the reasoning behind this is in short to protect players from weird behavior like sitting on tokens or unopened vaults weeks before the patch. So I'm going to skip the part where I try to cover every possibility, but the intent here is to let people start earning these new tokens from the first reset after this 0.5 patch. Everyone is going to start on an even playing field. Here's the intended player behavior. Let's say it's the start of the 0.5 patch, and I really want this weapon called Forge Storm. It's a one-hander with a pretty gnarly AoE proc. Now, luck hasn't been kind to me the first few months of the season, even after running like 50 Neltharis runs. It's just that bad. So I fill up my vault, and it doesn't matter what I do. It could be Raid Finder, it could be a bunch of heroics for all I care. And in the following week, I look at the vault, there's no Forge Storm, surprise, surprise, and none of the other pieces are great. So I'm gonna go ahead and take the tokens. This process will repeat until I get enough tokens to buy the weapon. While the vendor is present and available, its intended design is just a fallback option and not the method to obtain these coveted weapons or trinkets, and the trick is that the currency is managed by the Great Vault. Now you still gotta play the game and fill up the Great Vault, even if it is just Raid Finder and heroics and after the War Within world content, but this also makes this vendor very accessible. Like I said, this feature is meant to be for everyone. In the meantime, while players are farming up these tokens and filling up the vault, there's a non-zero chance that they may get the item that they want from a drop or from the vault itself. Or a different, maybe another desired item will be in the vault. The road towards buying that item is going to be riddled with landmines, but you know, they're kind of good landmines. There are other potential upgrades. Like, hey, should they take those best-in-slot shoulders that they can use in the catalyst, or should they skip out to work towards that needed trinket? Players are going to have to make a choice each week, or not. Maybe they can hold off on that choice and let vaults stay unopened for a while. Like, I don't say anything good or bad that comes out of that particular route. It's really their choice. Now you might have noticed that I didn't give certain specifics like exactly how long would it take to buy one of these items and what item level class is it going to be. Is it going to be champion, hero, myth? And can they be upgraded like in season 4 of Shadowlands? All of those questions are worth discussion, and I don't think there's any right answer that's worth defending. There's no hill I want to die on, but I'm going to share a few thoughts just as an example or a jumping off point. I do think it should take a good few weeks worth of vaults to buy these items, so if one can earn like 6 tokens a week, maybe the cost of these items should be like 18 to 24 tokens. Now some might see that as a bit too slow, some maybe too fast, but consider what it takes to get even 6 of those tokens. You have to fill out a vault row, and then what you get out of it has to be nothing that you want, again and again until you have enough tokens. The experience is designed to be players making a choice between what they can get from the vault immediately versus skipping out on that and waiting for the vendor. But it wouldn't feel right if over the rest of the season you couldn't get at least like a few of these items, especially for characters who play multiple specs. Now there's a very delicate balance that I'm seeing because the statement that I made just now suggests that I feel entitled to getting the items that I want because my circumstances are special. So again, lots of discussion on that front, just don't chew my head off. And while I'm facing the firing squad, I'm thinking that these items initially ought to stay as champion class, so basically the potential for heroic raid item level. Now that might turn off some people because it's not best in slot, although at the same time this would send the message that yes, this is merely a backup system and not a path that everyone is expected or forced to walk. With the systems as they are right now, everyone who participates in the vault, regardless of their playstyle, has access to max level champion gear. But maybe the higher level trinkets, maybe best in slot, could be available at much higher token costs. I think that sounds a little bit odd, but let's run with this thought for just a little bit. If there's a path towards getting the best trinket of the season, but it's going to take weeks or months of basically skipping out on all other vault rewards, Is that good design, or is it a step too far? Does this back up the idea of letting players play the way that they want, or is it too much of a distraction? Because again, I gotta reiterate this, the original intent of this idea is to put an end to those scenarios where RNG is just not on your side, and you don't get that special item that you want at all, regardless of the version. How will players see a feature like this though? For sure, some people are going to look at this like a progression system, even if it does come mid-season, and being typical gamers, introducing something like this means that the goalposts are shifting and players are going to ask for even more in renewed discussion. But I do believe in a feature like this, and I just want to hear your thoughts now. I'd like to tell myself that thanks to the timing of when this feature releases, it strikes a good balance between deterministic rewards and traditional gear farming. And it doesn't ask players to go out of their way to do things that they otherwise don't care to do. It's just another feature of the Great Vault. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and get some discussion going. And if you don't mind, like the video, subscribe for more WoW coverage. Catch me live and I'll catch you later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.